This movie sucks. AVGN the web show is a great, classic series of YouTube videos, but for AVGN the movie, the producers were obviously not thinking straight. At first, it seems like a pretty decent movie. A little different from the first 3 episodes in the series, but that's okay. RVB Season 6 was different from the first, Sonic Adventure 2 was different, but they were all good.
I think you get the reference by this point. AVGN is something you think of when you think of classic-era YouTube, and by extension, media analysis and reviews of current-day YouTube. After all, this channel, along with many, many others, are in some way directly inspired by the antics of AVGN as far back as the early 2000s. 2005 to be exact, although those videos were in circulation for around, I believe, 2003, 2004 or so. Point is, AVGN has earned its way into YouTube stardom, I guess, the legacy of YouTube. He's one of the most iconic video game personalities who isn't directly associated with the industry in the way that other people are, but in terms of reviewing it and being a prominent figure in online circles regarding video games. While I don't watch AVGN as much as I used to due to general disinterest in the show, along with other arguably better YouTubers taking up my time and energy and everything else, I would be amiss if I didn't at least acknowledge his legacy on YouTube. And after all, I still think he's a great YouTuber to go back to, especially in those early episodes. Those early AVGN episodes are like what early Simpsons episodes are to other people. Just a series of classic banger after banger videos that you can go back and watch whatever you feel like and have a good time.
Now, when talking about AVGN, there was a divide between 2 distinct eras of the show. Episodes before 2013 to maybe 2014 I remembered pretty fondly. Those are the ones you see quoted a lot, people make edits of, and all from when, popularity-wise, AVGN was at its peak. Post-2014 and onwards, there's still a good handful of episodes, but I'd be lying if I said that I, as well as many others, don't go back to that era of the show all too much. What happened to cause that dip? Well, as many already know, in 2014, AVGN the movie was released, and it was, not very good. James Wolfe has always wanted to make a movie, and you can see that on a lot of the best AVGN episodes, especially the ones centered around various licensed games. A lot of the time, that allowed James to justify parodying, or more accurately, paying tribute to whatever the nerd was talking about, recreating moments in the process with James's style. So when he was given the chance to make the AVGN movie, thinking it was his chance to make a full-on, feature-length film beyond his simple short films that he shot in college, James and his friends took it. And he launched a crowdfunding campaign, moved to California for several months to do so, and after a very stressful and hectic production, the movie was released to less than favorable reviews. I remember liking it at the time, but also I was like 12 and I don't really remember much of my initial thoughts of it outside of, look how funny it is. It's not that funny in hindsight.
A lot of people speculated this crushed James' hopes of being a Hollywood director, that because of this he sold out to Screen Rave, who are the current, I believe, producers of AVGN, or whatever, the people who own AVGN, and as a result, that's why you see the dip in quality that you see currently in AVGN products. It's weird saying products, I hate saying that. But I don't really like playing armchair psychiatrist when it comes to things like that. I'm in no reason to judge if this crushed, James Rolfe's spirit or whatever. I'm here to judge the movie as a movie, and also as an AVGN fan. Did this do a good job as being a good companion piece to the show, or did it do a good job as being a movie in of its own right, or did it not do either of those things and just suck entirely? Well, crack open a Rolling Rock and prepare to practice a fuck ton of alliteration, because tonight we are taking a look at Angry Video Game Nerd the Movie, and finding out if James Rolfe's forte into filmmaking really paid off. I would have a Rolling Rock right now, but 1, I don't like Rolling Rock, and 2, it is like 12 in the morning, and I feel like maybe that's a bit too early to start drinking. And also, if I would have fucking Angry Orchard instead. I love Angry Orchard.
We start with a little history lesson, one that gives the audience background on Atari and E.T. This is explained to us by Mandy, an executive at Cockburn Industries, a game company that seeks to make a sequel to E.T., and Mandy plans on using the Nord to promote it, since according to her, people are willing to buy bad games once the AVGN reviews it. Speaking of the Nord, he's in the opening credits in a montage, playing all of his legally friendly video games, as seen on YouPoop, my favorite website. God, look at that old layout, I miss it so much. Featured here is also a bunch of cameos from real AVGN fans, all requesting him to review E.T. for obvious reasons. Which, to be honest, I actually really like that. I found that to be a cute idea.
It sucked balls. Glug, glug, glug. You see, is it really that hard?
Anyways, after the montage is done, we see Nord finishing up with a video with his friend who's awkwardly green screened in. Cooper!
You remember Cooper, right? He was in all those classic AVGN videos. I loved when he played Metroid. And also Sonic. God. I love Cooper.
Okay, I think what happened was, in real life, Mike Matei, longtime collaborator of James, and the one who did a lot of work on the early AVGN episodes, was going to be in the movie, but since Mike didn't want to move out to California, and also because they need to keep the YouTube channel alive, Mike Matei stayed in Philadelphia, creating some of the worst videos I have ever seen, but that's a story for another time.
Where's Elmo's blanket? That bitch Zoe fucking ripped it! Just like I'm gonna rip her fucking head off later tonight when everybody's asleep.
Well, James and his wife went out to California with the rest of the crew. As a result, they made a change to the canon of the show, and now placing Mike with Cooper, who honestly isn't that bad, but it's just still kind of weird because, well, he only exists in this movie. Speaking of Cooper, he drives the Nord to their job at Game Cops, which features one of the few good performances in this film by way of the boss of Game Cops, who I have no idea his name is, but my god, I love his performance.
Go for the gun!
I'd rather not.
Go for the gun! Hello? What? It's a boy.
People begin to recognize him at the store and then beg him to review E.T. Because of the people's protest, AVGN gets so enraged that he runs out of the store and decides to quit for the day. And so him and Cooper try to go back home. On the drive back home, Cooper tells the story of E.T. to the Nord. Not of the movie, of the game's production and how shit it was and the fact that, they rushed it out and everything. You know the whole story. AVGN denies the myth about E.T., which is confusing, because why? The Nord is the type of person who is all about that kind of shit. I mean, he's spoken about urban legends beforehand in video games. Why is this one of the most popular myths about video games ever, the exception? A myth that admittedly later turned out to be reality, but that was literally during the production of this movie. It was a whole thing. Anyways, the two head to a ball, where Gore wants AVGN to sign her boobs.
Yes, kids, because if you complain about Supernova Zulk on the internet, you'll get all the pussy imaginable. Do you think if, they do that with Yoshi's story, I'll get all the pussy? Because I'd be willing to.
They meet Mandy, who mentions she wants the Nord to advertise the game. One comedy buff effect later that would make Triumph the Insert Comic Dog blush, and the Nord goes to sleep, refusing to both review E.T. and the sequel that they plan on making. Once the Nord goes to sleep, he has a nightmare about himself playing the E.T. game as a child. Oh, I'm sorry, E.T. Again, legally different. The nightmare then turns into him being in the game. Oh, and then he is awake, but surprise, motherfucker, green thing. What is this? Seriously. Another fake out later, the Nord finds himself having a nightmare about his show becoming an overmarketed carnival where people win free copies of E.T. I cannot imagine how this is incredibly ironic in any way in current year 2025. Anyways, this turns into some kind of zombie apocalypse or whatever because James wanted it in the script. After the nightmare, the Nord contacts Cooper, who tells them they need to review the game and get rid of all the copies. So Nord, Cooper, and Mandy, who's joining in because of funding from Cockburn Industries, all drive to New Mexico to review the game and find out if the legend is true, much to the Nord's dismay.
I also really don't like the idea of bringing this girl with us.
Relax, no, she's our producer. And she's not a girl, she's a gamer.
The more the Nord talks about Mandy, the more sexist he sounds. Upon arrival, the government begins to spy on them, and here we see the best character in this film, General Dolk Onward, somebody who legitimately has the best performance in the entire film, and I'm dead serious about it. We also get a lecture about Death Mothrix. No, I'm not kidding. Cooper begins to talk about some kind of stupid death god kaiju thing that created heaven and hell.
Death Moth 6 is a cyber mutant death god living under Mount Fuji. He created both God and Satan.
Yeah, sure.
No, I swear this is all true. And this thing has the power to end all life as we know it.
This was actually in the film.
I swear to Christ, if this becomes a vital part in the movie later on, I'm gonna freak out.
Once the government officials encounter our crew and see that they were trying to review E.T., Dolk Onward tries to kill them, but only ends up blowing up his arm. This causes a big comedy chase scene that's not very funny, but at least has some decent music. In order to find out more information, the gang goes after what they think is Howard Scott Warshaw's house, the creator of E.T. the game in real life, but once they arrive at the house and go through a Mario reference, they meet Dr. Xandor, a former government scientist who is now in hiding, and the one who originally created the map for the E.T. game and gave it to the real-life Howard Scott Warshaw. And it turns out that Xandor worked at Area 51 during the time of the Roswell incident, in which, allegedly, an alien and a ship crashed near Area 51, the government kidnapped them, and Xandor was so pissed about it that he used Area 51's map as a basis for the E.T. game, giving it to the actual Howard Scott Warshaw, and stealing the material used from the alien ship, replacing it with tinfoil. After the game was released, the government caused the burial of all cartridges to prevent anyone from knowing about it.
You know, despite it being kind of utterly batshit insane, I do like the explanation. It's not a great explanation, but it is a creative one, I'll give you that, and I do like how they tied it into the Roswell incident, even though I have basically no frame of reference for that outside of the Futurama episode. Still though, it's a really cool idea. I mean, if you're gonna center a movie's plot around a video game, why not go the route of this movie and try to tie it into something bigger than just a video game?
Mandy and Nord spend some time together afterwards, playing track and field, because of course they would, but then she gets kidnapped by the FBI while trying to talk to her boss late at night. The morning after, Cooper talks to the Nord about Mandy. Cooper believes that she is a spy sent by the government to keep tabs on them, and the Nord obviously doesn't believe that. Until they find out that Mandy is no longer there, and the Nord assumes the worst because the plot demands so.
It was all an act, don't you understand? She's bait. I mean, we'll all foolishly try to rescue her and get caught right in a trap.
I feel like such a fool. The moment you share your joystick with a girl, you break it.
Okay, I was gonna wait for this until after I was done with the whole recap portion of this video or whatever, but man, does Nord and Cooper sound like a bunch of misogynistic assholes. Like, seriously, whenever they talk about women in general, not just Mandy, but just women in general, it comes across as the same way as middle schoolers talk about cooties. Misogynistic may or may not be the best word to describe these two, but when you have lines like Nords for full boards, it really makes me think that these are two characters that haven't mentally matured past the 1980s.
Always remember the golden rule. Nerds before birds, right? Most important, no girls. Nerds before birds.
You're the one who's acting all weird. You get a little girlfriend all of a sudden.
Oh, fuck off.
Don't break the code. Nerds before birds.
And sure, that was kind of the joke of original AVGN. This grown-ass man who was getting worked up over shitty NES games that he played as a kid. But the movie doesn't treat it like that. Everywhere, AVGN is viewed as some kind of 8-bit messiah of video games. The one that everyone in this movie bows down to him as he explains to us, the feebled video game peasants, why a 20-year-old video game is a shitload of fuck. It just comes off as petty and stupid. Not helped that right afterwards, when they think Mandy left them, they instantly turn on her. Dude, you spent one night playing an NES game with her. She wasn't gonna fucking date you. Anyways, the FBI tries to find the location of Dr. Xandor, but since Mandy doesn't want to tell anything to the feds, she just wastes their time for the next, 30 minutes. Meanwhile, at the dig site, Cockburn Industries put on a festival in order to celebrate the release of AVGN's possible review of E.T., assuming they can find copies of it, and also, of course, E.T. 2. Oh hey, Guitar Guy is here. The nerd tries to convince everyone, and Pat the NES punk, that the landfill is a myth, and the real Howard Scott Warshaw then shows up and tells the crowd that the myth is indeed true, and everyone should go out and find the real E.T. game. And then they were ultimately shot by the feds. Nah, I'm kidding. The nerd then tries to disprove the myth by breaking into Area 51, in one of the true few funny scenes of this movie. Meanwhile, with Mandy, Sergeant McButtle, yes, that's her actual name, tries to contact the nerd about her kidnapping Mandy. But he just tells her to fuck off, because obviously he's angry at her. Once AVGN breaks into Area 51, he finds out it looks exactly like the game, but then he's knocked out by one of the trash cunt guys and the general tortures him, for reasons. Fortunately, though, the copy of E.T. that Cooper has manages to control the actual alien that landed on New Mexico all those years ago. He saves the nerd, but not after Dark Aldor destroys Mount Fuji for reasons again. Also, Tupac is alive, guys! I don't know why they included that, but hey, he's alive! So it turns out that E.T. was sent to save the world from Death Malthrix, who is unleashed from the destroyed Mount Fuji. Fuck me. Alright, so after Death Malthrix goes on a rampage and Mandy fights General McButtle, Xander reveals that the metal from the spaceship was actually in all the E.T. cartridges that they dumped. We get a Doug Walker cameo, the ship is recreated, everyone gets in the ship, and they kill the stupid fucking kaiju creature or whatever. The nerd reviews the actual game, and then movie just ends. Fuck this movie.
When you make a movie about a niche TV show, or in this case web show, you run the risk of the fans enjoying it, but you also lose a broader audience enjoying it because they're not familiar with it. Now, can it be possible? Yes. I remember the South Park movie is beloved by a lot of people who don't even watch the show anymore, or never watch the show. But when you change a lot of things about the subject and also tone down what you see in the show compared to what you see in the movie, that's when you lose both the general audience and also the fans you were trying to aim for. Oops!
Now, I have a feeling I know why many of these changes were made. For one, the AVGN format doesn't translate well to a full feature-length movie. AVGN works well in videos that are like 20 minutes max, with him providing commentary about whatever he is taking a look at. Basing the plot around the legend of E.T. and the commentary about AVGN's role as a pioneer of online content and his reputation is clever, but again, the way that James is portrayed, especially with how the fans treat him as the 8-bit messiah, depending on how you look at it, it's either an accurate reflection of the relationship between the fans and James, or an embarrassing look at how James views himself. Now, I would be lying if I said this wasn't a part of James's reputation for most of his career. Keep in mind that he was one of the top internet personalities of the early YouTube days. But there's just something about how he is portrayed here that is at best tiring and at worst egocentric. But even outside of that, Nerd and Cooper are both portrayed like whiny man-children. I get it, they were both supposed to be like stereotypical nerds, who are destined to never find love. But as I mentioned during the recap portion of this video, they come off as really misogynistic. There's a reason why Evan Dorkley made a comic about how all this shit sucks. Speaking of, man, the acting in this movie sucks! Except for the general, who clearly knows what kind of movie he's supposed to be in.
Me, Xander! Is that the landfill I want in my life?
Everyone in this movie either is mediocre at best or oddly stilted. James is a prime example. Half the time, he has this very monotone voice and sounds just generally uninterested. Which is strange because, I mean, he can clearly get emotional during his videos. The rest of the cast fares better, but nobody's performance truly stands out. They're serviceable at best. That's the kind of word I would describe it. Not bad, not great, not anywhere horrible, just perfectly fine and serviceable. The overall plot is clearly something that appeals to James and James only, and to be honest, I respect that, but also, despite clearly being a living tribute to everything James enjoys, I feel like they don't really have much fun with it. Or at least not enough fun. The only ones that really come to mind is the chase scene, the nightmare sequence, and the Area 51 scenes. If AVGN's career was all about making funny observations on video games and to a lesser extent movies, then why wasn't there more of that here? Half the movie's runtime is just unfunny banter between James and his friends. Another thing I noticed is that a lot of this movie just looks bad. Very, very bad. The green screen shots especially look unnatural, which you can argue is part of the joke, but also I feel like they use that as a defense mechanism in order to shield criticism away by just saying, oh, it's supposed to look bad. It reminds me too much of a certain other infamous internet personality. Outside of that, I swear most of this film was just shot over shot. There were a handful of shots that I would consider at the very least above average, but outside of that, there's not really else. If there's one thing I can praise this movie for, it's the use of practical sets and effects. James and his team clearly have a love for that style of filmmaking. After all, they did an entire month dedicated to Godzilla reviews, and the quality is actually pretty good. They have a certain homemade feel to them, which I really find charming. It's one of the few things I feel like this movie does really well, and you can tell they had fun with it. Outside of that, there's not a lot I can really praise about this film, or even talk about it, period. The plot is shit, the acting is mediocre at best, the score is... well, I actually kind of like it, filled with a lot of good chiptune songs, and overall it's just a weird, strange footnote in AVGN history. A lot has been said about James' role for his channel after the movie, some people arguing that James lost his passion for it afterwards, and I don't think that's the case, as for one, Board James is made directly after that, and that's arguably his best work, and two, James is just a different person now. He has kids, he's a dad, he has a family, and as of writing this, he's in his mid-40s doing something that was born out of him making videos that he did for fun in his early 20s.
I hope that one day James does get a chance to make a movie his way in the future, especially since him doing this in the first place is something I can commend as an aspiring filmmaker myself. I can dog on the film all I want, but ultimately he got it made. He got a big budget movie made like this. Well, not big budget, you just put the budget over here, but he still got a movie made and out there in theaters and everything. And again, I can commend him for that. There's been a lot of criticism towards James in the past few years over his content and the people who are currently managing the AVGN brand, but I know he's older, and to be fair, he doesn't owe any of us fans anything. I'm just glad that he was able to do what he loves doing for a living, and making a ton of friends along the way. With that being said, though, I wish the movie was better, and I feel like now it's just a weird, strange footnote in the history of AVGN, but again, I can applaud him for doing it in the first place. I didn't really have a proper ending for this video, but, what a shitload of fuck this movie was.
And you don't seem to...
Hello there everyone, and thank you for watching this video about the AVGN movie. It was a very fun video to make, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did when I was making it. Or however the saying goes. Kinda tired even though it's only like 12 in the morning. If you like this video so much you want to see more of this type of content, please either like this video, subscribe, or check out other videos. You know, it's probably over here, maybe it's over here. I don't know where I'm gonna put it, I just know it's gonna be somewhere on the screen. Or if you want to be special, you could do all three, and you know, I don't know, help me out or whatever. If you want to follow me on my other social medias, down below in the description. I also have a Ko-Fi if you want to donate for whatever reason. Yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of like the self-promotion thing. I felt like this was a very fun topic to discuss because I wanted to go from the perspective of somebody who's currently in film school and also like appreciates James as like a person who does this, but also critical and realize, man, I wish he did some things differently, but still have that kind of respect. Next video I'm working on is gonna be not necessarily different, but it's gonna be something. It's gonna be a bit of a larger retrospective, if that makes any sense. The Halo 3 video I should try to get out by the summer. In fact, that's when the other video should be out as well, and I'll probably work on that next because it's just an easy video for me to write personally. But I'm also working on something else, 2 things technically, but one of them is really in production, and that should be out by the end of next month, I would say, maybe start next month, depending on how things go. So yeah, that's pretty much it as of now. Hope you liked the video, and thank you.